Rosemary, thank you so much for coming on the Winners Paradigm podcast. I've been meaning to interview you for a while, but now it was perfect timing. So I want to say thank you. Number one, you're an absolute badass, the fucking beast. And it's awesome just being around you, really just watching your content. And I'm like, man, our brands match up. The energy you put out there is pretty badass. So before I get ahead of myself, would you mind giving us a brief intro, who you are, what you're passionate about today?
Yeah, first, thank you for having me. I appreciate you and I appreciate you inviting me. Rosemary Bonner, that's me. I've worn many hats, but I have finally found what speaks to me the most and what I'm most passionate about. I've always had a really burning desire to help people. And I've just kind of dialed in on exactly what works best and who I can help and how. So basically, I went through some pain points and I'm using those pain points to help others to get through them and to elevate to the level that they want. So basically, recreation, instead of wallowing in your sorrows, take those sorrows, use the pain as fuel, and elevate to recreate to the life of your dreams, to the life that you want. And most people can't do that on their own, myself included. You need someone else to come in, take a bird's eye view and say, okay, here's where you were, here's where you're at, and here's where you want to be. And here are some steps that we're going to take to get there. So basically, in sum, that's what I'm doing now.
I love that. And I think that's one of the things that kind of hit with me, especially with your content, is you're talking about those pain points. In my case, it's a little bit different because I'm the one who fucked up and had some right doings, and it put me under a microscope and made me really uh, look at myself, because everything that I was doing could either be taken through a different avenue. And you talk about accountability, you talk about really getting clear to where not pointing the finger. You talked about a client the other day where they were complaining about the husband. And you're like, no, it's about what you can control first before it even goes to the husband. And that's something I'm big on with my clients is they say that, oh, my wife, this or that. I'm like, bro, it really doesn't fucking matter, because at the end of the day, you led the marriage into that. You decided to make these actions. Now you're going to deal with the repercussions. You made that bed you're living in. So when it comes to the part of where we're in that pain, we're trying to figure out how to move forward, but we're really having a hard time with taking that accountability of our actions, about whatever happened to us. What do you recommend to that person who's really struggling at moving forward and just keeps beating themselves up with that position they're in?
Basically, what I start with is, okay, so to your point on that post, it was to in sum, it was a woman who was complaining about her life as a whole, and she was going drip, 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 and complaining about all the things around her. And I basically, in so many words, said, well, what's the common denominator here? And I had her focus on looking in the mirror as opposed to looking at all the other factors that are around her. So what we need to do is first we need to look within. Okay. And once we look within, and we make self improvements, we only have control of ourselves. We only have control of what we do, what we think, and what we spit out to the universe. It's how others are responding to you. Now, listen, that's also not to say, bad things don't happen and you don't need to kind of navigate through those challenges, but it's about being aware. So if you can bring your best self forward, I guarantee the things around you will start to flourish and start to change. And in my program, what we do is we start with, for example, a woman comes to me and she's struggling. We start with her physical fitness. Listen, let's get you physically strong. Once we get you physically strong, then you're going to gain confidence. Once you gain confidence, you're going to get mental strength and mental clarity. Then the third pillar, then we can look at your life and what's going on, and we can strategize, take small steps each day to say, okay, here's where I want to be, break it down, and this is how we're going to get there.
Ooh, I love that so much. That's something I'm big on as well with my clients, is really that foundation. Because I find a lot of guys, is it's talking about that position. It's talking about the pointing the finger, especially when it comes to the relationship aspect of when you first got together. It was one way, you guys were operating a different way, and then you kind of fall into your way in whatever it is. And they're always saying, oh, my spouse this or that, when in turn, like you said, it's all about the action that we take, that foundation that we set, and that's why that energy is there. So I love the way that you said that, because if you focus on yourself, everything else follows. And that's something I'm big on as well, because I had a lot of injuries. Before I was in the best shape of my life, I was working out twice a day. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go into bodybuilding, and I'm excited, and the injuries happened, and it really got me depressed. Gained 40 pounds, had a strain on my relationship because I was a different person from just checking out of life, being high as fuck,
Yeah.
drinking, trying to just mask this pain because
Mhm.
I no longer felt like I was that same person. And I think that's huge, is really figuring out who you are. And that is something as well you talk about, is that energy level of when you put the time into yourself, like you said, taking care of that body, the mind, the soul follows with it. How is that energy for you? Excuse me. How is that energy transferable when we do start taking time to focus on ourselves first and then being able to exert that out externally?
You know what it is? The foundation of everything, we're given one soul here, one body. And if we're not taking care of this is not going to function properly. So if we keep our physical bodies strong, number one, you're holding yourself accountable. Number two, you're basically setting, without realizing it, you're setting small goals and you're achieving them. While you're achieving them, you're gaining confidence. Your muscles are starting to get a little tone. The fat starts to drop. And especially specifically for women, this is huge. How many women do we see that walk into a room like this and they're meek and they're looking around, where I come in, I'm like, no, let's go. Have some confidence, walk in like you own it. There's no reason not to. So, and to your point, some of the women that I speak with, when it comes to looking at themselves, it's also, let's say, for example, listen, this dude cheated on me. Let's just, for a hypothetical. At that point, yes, they're going to go through the trauma and they're going to feel sad. And why did he? And what could I do? No, it's not about him. And now it's not about you. Saddle up, because he did before you and he's going to do it after you. And this is for men and women. Even if it was a woman cheating on a man, she did it before. Unless he puts or she puts the work into self, that person is not going to change. But right now we focus on you. Right now we focus on you. What lesson did you learn? Maybe you gave too easily. Maybe you gave too much too quickly. Maybe you didn't respect yourself and they saw that and they took advantage of that. So it's all a matter of, again, it all points back to self.
Man, you hit it on the money right there, and that hurt me, because that was
Sorry.
me. I stepped out of my marriage. Not that I needed to. In I would say also it goes to the accountability. You talked about that. For me, in my situation, when I talk to men, again, I have to understand who I'm talking to, because they're going to be like, it's not that bad. Versus, talking to a woman, they're going to be like, oh, I totally understand your wife's point of view. And that was something that pissed me off initially, was when I came out and I was like, hey, this is how I fucked up. People had it from that one or two lens. They were like validating what happened, or they were like, nah, it's not fucking okay. And it was funny. It's like the females were like, it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when I really looked at it, it was going to that external versus the internal of, hey, something was missing. I could have been better in communicating my feelings. I could have been better at saying, hey, something isn't the same with us. But I didn't do those things. I went external thinking that was going to fix the internal, kept drinking, and it led me to that, about to lose my whole family, lose everything. So I resonate with that, and that kind of hurt a little bit when you were saying that, because that was something for me, that really changed just my perspective on the world, where it was like, hey, we can sit here all fucking day. We can cry about how it was for us. We can cry about that programming. We can cry about whatever. But at the end of the day, we have the ability to take action. We have the ability to change, like you said. And especially when it comes to cheating, like, it takes so much work and it's not even funny. And even when you do put that work in, you still have that in the back of your mind of like, hey, this is how life used to be, whether you are the one cheated on, whatever. In my case, I was fortunate to be able to experience it, and sit there with those feelings and just really be like, fuck, like, I hate myself for what I did, where I brought my marriage to. So I resonated deeply with that. And I appreciate you for really opening up on that side, because I think that's a lot of what people don't talk about, is they
Mm-hmm.
talk about everything else, but they don't talk about that pain point of why it hurts so much, or why we have to develop ourselves and put that work in. Because it's easy to put that mask on, to act like you're past that, to act a certain way, versus actually going through the motions and understanding that you have to heal and fix what's going on before you can even move forward.
Yeah, I agree. And then, just to add to that, what I want to say is, like, let's say, for example, we have a man, we have a woman, and hypothetically, the man cheats on the woman, and the woman just goes into a tailspin, a rabbit hole. I can't believe he did this to me. I can't believe he did this to me. He's pissed off because he did it, but he's pissed off because he did it because he got bored with the marriage. What it boils down to, treat your relationship as if it's new. Treat everything like it's new, like it's brand new. And if that's your priority, you're always going to pour into it. So you're never going to feel that you're lacking. If your wife is pouring into you, if you're pouring into your wife, and you guys are connected there, and you feel that you are the most important things in this world, and without you as a solid foundation, that's how everything, that's how, I don't know if you guys have kids or not, but that's how this system works. This whole system, it's like a dial, like the inside of a clock. Okay, one thing moves, the other thing moves, but unless you're all pouring into it, it's going to crumble. So we've got to keep that foundation solid. Nothing is anybody's fault. Things happen because people change. So if you make the decision to say, this is my number one priority, my wife, my husband, this is our foundation, this is it, ride or die, we're going to go through life together, battle mates, we're doing this. Everything is going to be fine. So if you're having a shitty day, your wife's going to say, he's having a shitty day, how can I help him? And you're going to do the same thing for your wife, because that's your priority and you've discussed it, you've communicated it, and those are your goals. Marriages go stale all the time. What can we do to fix that? Treat it like it's new.
I love that so much. And I'd say that hit me because we had two miscarriages originally. Now we're about to have a 1 year old and then a 3 year old. She's two. And for me, it was the self development. It was when I tried to stop drinking. Here's the key word, tried.
Uh-huh.
I tried to stop drinking, and it was hard because when I stopped that relationship, and like we talked about, is that energy? That's gonna be the second part we're talking about. I was that dude who walked in and was like, "What's up, motherfuckers? Let's get faded," and I was shit faced
Mm-hmm.
all the fucking time. So when
Mm-hmm.
I stopped drinking, it was hard because that's how me and my wife connected. Was we would get drunk together,
Yeah.
and it was changing that. So when I start doing better, and I'm like, "Why don't you fucking get self development? Like there's nothing to get. It's super easy. You're not pushing yourself," and that's where I found myself distancing. Was like I thought it was competitive versus being like, hey, I have the ability to influence based off my actions of how I show up every day. To me, it wasn't that. It's like my wife had the nutrition on point. I was in the gym every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what is there to get? And that's where I became more of an asshole for a period of time because that's all I was focused on was what everybody else was doing. Like Wes Watson says, is there's the two types of people. You're either bashing other people or you're bashing yourself. And for me, like I know I'm doing everything that I can, so I really don't even look at myself that way. I'm like, hey, I
Yeah.
show up. So when it comes to other people, I'm like, I don't want to be here. I'm a drinker. I started noticing all these things with people, and that's kind of what led me to the problems within my relationship was going through that and not processing the trauma, not processing the emotions that are whatever. My wife shut down with the miscarriages, and then I was a little more open about it. And then when I started shutting down, that's where she was open about it. And also, when I was in the military, right before I got married, I got sexually assaulted, and I didn't come out and speak about that. I didn't talk about the feelings. I was just real fucking angry, suppressing the emotion. Didn't really want to talk about it at all because, as a man, that's not what you wanted to be talking about. And it doesn't bring points of strength
Sure.
as you would think. Even though when you do start talking about it, the strength comes out. And for
Yeah.
me, it was like I was blacked out, drunk. Again, alcohol reverting back to the vices of why I was fucking up with kind of where my mental state was at, and military giving me antidepressants and me getting more weight and getting pissed off because I'm like, I have injuries, I'm eating clean, I can't lose the weight, my
Yep.
metabolism's fucked, like all these things that in turn, when I focused on myself, it did take years, it did take time for things to get a little bit better. But I love the way that you said that again, because when you don't process the things, when you're not on that same page, that's where all the problems arise. It's not anything new, it's not anything crazy. It's just like, hey, if there's the shit that you don't really sit there with and you don't handle first, it's going to lead to bigger things. And that's kind of where I found myself. So I did like
Absolutely.
the way you said that.
Yeah. Yep.
So when you were talking earlier, you were talking about the energy, and you were saying when you walk in the room, you're like, boom, and you're helping from that. I know that's something that typically women don't understand. I was explaining that to my wife is, hey, as a man, you can read these things. I'm real big on that. Like if somebody hesitates, I don't want to be around the guy. I just can't fucking do it. They're hesitating. I'm like, bro, they move too slow. Like I'm one of those that goes, goes, goes. I was also
I
in the
get it.
military, so I'm used to people telling me shut the fuck up or get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, always wired, always going. And when I walk in the room, and I also come from a heavy sales environment as well. So I was talking about when I worked at a mortgage brokerage, I would walk in and they're like, man, this dude's jacked. Every day he's working out before work. He's drinking protein at work. I would drink pre-workout at lunchtime and go hit the gym. They were just like, man, it's a different transfer of energy. And when you walk through the rooms, people understand that. So I know you're involved in badass communities. You're one of those people that walks in rooms and people see that transfer of energy. How important is it to be in the best shape of your life just to show up so people can see that when you walk in is like, hey, Rosemary's here to play, not to just be average like everybody else.
Yeah, and you just hit the nail on the head. It's about not being average. And make no mistake, just to clarify, this is not for anyone watching or listening, this is not an arrogance thing. This is not a vanity thing. This is about within. This is, I've met very just skinny people, but they can walk in and there is a presence of confidence. So, but for me and for people like us, it's a matter of when we go to the gym, when we put that muscle on, when we push ourselves to failure, we know that we've accomplished that. So we can walk in and say, let's say we're walking into a room with a group of obese people. I'm going to be even taller than I was before. And they may look at that and see that as intimidation. However, my job and my role, what I need to do, and my responsibility is at this point in my life, is to exude that energy, share it, teach it, so that people can change their lives for the better. Even kids. I walk into a group of a bunch of teenagers, and you can see they're insecure. Why is the world so insecure? If you're not happy with your body, with your shell that God gave us, go fix it, gain some confidence, and walk into the room like you own it. People, and like you said, to your point, when it comes to like, when you were in that working environment and they were like, what is this specimen walking in? It's just a matter of, I'm confident within myself. I'm confident within what I'm going to do with my body. And that is going to portray, and that's going to be a domino effect in my sales and in my numbers.
Again, you hit it on the money, and that's something that I used to just be a savage with. And even getting on the phones, I'd have the high intensity, and then I'd start whispering, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" And again, it's that energy level. I'm like, "Hey, I get you." Like all of a sudden, I understand that somebody's high power and they're talking, or maybe it's that East Coast personality because I know how y'all get, talking real quick, and I love it, But it's
You'd
funny
be
because it's like,
surprised. You'd be surprised how many slow talkers there are. And same, it drives me insane. Like I walk out shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just get to the point? Can we just, and I teach my kids this too. Some people criticize this about, some of my parenting skills, but I teach my kids, you are above average. You are not average. And they're 4 and 6 years old, and my 6-year-old said to me yesterday, he said, no lie, Mommy, what's above average? I was like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm literally like brainwashing him to think even bigger at such a young age. And if we can start them now, and if you can start your little kids now, having that, getting into the habit of always thinking bigger and what's next, what's more, how much more can I achieve? Imagine what we can do to this generation.
No, that's powerful. That's what I'm already big on. My daughter was 1 years old. I'm doing burpees, and I'm like, "Hey, get your ass down. We're doing push-ups." And my wife's looking at me like, "Don't talk to her that way." I'm like, "Nah." And then my daughter knew to do push-ups, and my
Yep.
son now bumps his head and he looks at me, and I'm like, "You good? Let's keep going." And my
Yeah.
wife's just like, "Hey, he's a baby. Blah blah blah. Like you're being hard on him." And for me, my parents were tough as fuck, tough
Yeah.
as nails. Like no signs of weakness. I'm not trying to convey that 100%, but I do appreciate that because again, leaps and bounds, especially at my age, I found that when I was at that mortgage broker's, like I was saying, these kids are 22 years old, getting off mommy, daddy's couch. And then there's me about to buy a house, just starting a family, just a different breed. And it was funny because it's like all the things that, my parents may have not been the greatest, but they fucking taught me how to be a man, how to, exude this energy. So now with my kids, I'm learning that is like, hey, my kids know about the push-ups already. My 1-year-old will come over and he's trying to do push-ups with me. And I'm like, hey, that's the mentality. And my daughter, at the same time is like, hey, let's do this. Gets books and she wants to read with me. And it's funny because I was thinking about that the other day, it's like that energy, like you're saying, that we're bringing to our kids or showing them the best of the best. I came from seeing my parents drink every fucking day. And it's powerful that like my daughter will bring a book and brings it to me. And it's like, hey, dad, let's read books together.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't have those things. So it was just pretty awesome the other day where like that was kind of the conversation. And I was thinking about that, like, hey, it's what we teach our kids ultimately that makes them better than what we were. And at the same time, like, who are we to bitch about our kids and be like, oh, our kids are this way when we have the power to influence them? And clearly we didn't do it the right way if they're not exactly what we want them to be, And I found a lot of men where they point the finger, oh, my wife was real easy on the kids, or they wanted to baby them. And it's like, oh, man, like you decided to do whatever. You decided to drink in front of them. So you're showing them this. So how are you going to complain at them about what they're doing because they just passed on exactly what you taught them?
Yeah. And one thing I just want to touch on, one of your pinpoints was teaching him how to be a man. How old's your son?
He's 1.
He's 1. No, that's okay. I mean, it's never too early. But to that point, kind of swaying off kids, I just feel like there, and this might be a trigger for some people watching, but I've had many conversations with men and women about this, and there is a lack of responsibility as a man. Now, obviously, I'm not the woman that's going to say a woman needs to be barefoot and pregnant with an apron running around the kitchen, but I know that I'm out fairly alpha for a woman, but I feel that there's a lot of men at this point, and the way society is going is, and they feel entitled. They don't take the role as a man. A woman wants a man to be masculine and to take care of her in certain ways. Not to say coddle her and tell her to stay home and not work. It's about making her feel feminine as a woman. Yeah, she wants the car door opened for her. She wants to know that she's the lady and you're the gentleman. But I feel that in society today, something shifted, and there's that lack of. How many times I'm telling you, when I'm walking around with my kids, I'm holding the door for the guy that's walking through. I'm like, this is out of control. This is crazy.
No, I love that so much, because people don't understand that, and that's kind of one of the things, is this nice guy persona, this nice guy BS that you're taught into now because of society, and they're like, oh, be nice, and no, it's like, no, you should be a fucking savage. You can still be nice, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, like we're talking about that energy earlier, like the guy who walks in the room and is confident and it's like, yeah, I can be the nice guy, but the savage at the same time, that's the one who gets what he wants in life. But the one that is passive aggressive, lets this woman walk all over him, doesn't show up as that, that's where the issues arise. And I found that in my marriage with my wife, like she may not like me, she may say I'm an asshole, but I'm like, nah, I require the fucking most out of her. And she gets mad at me because she'll say something, she'll have a mentality and be like, oh, I really don't care. Or, oh, it's not really a big deal. I'm like, no, it is a fucking big deal. Like, go
Mm-hmm.
put that cart back. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And she gets irritated with me. No, no, no. I'm like, nah, that shit's going to seep to somewhere else in your fucking life. And now we're going to be having this conversation all over again. And she's looking at me upset, like, you can't talk to me that way. And then later on, she's like, hey, you said this. And now I understand where you're at, and
It's just
sometimes like
tough love.
people
It's
don't
tough love, and
understand
it's
that.
the delivery. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's touch on that. So for the tough love aspect, people want to hear what they want to hear versus what they need to hear. When we have the clients, when we have the friends, whoever it is, how important is it for us to just tell them exactly what it needs to be versus running around the bush like a lot of people like to do today?
For a long time, I did that and I tiptoed. And I finally got to the point where I was like, I'm not doing you any service by tiptoeing. And those that can't handle it can step off, as far as I'm concerned. Now, when it comes to family and friends, you know, you don't choose your family, but they're going to know you pretty well. Your friends you choose, and the friends, I'm fortunate enough to have the friends that are family. They literally are family, and we say it like it is. I want my friends to call me out, and they know I'm going to call them out. There was a time I was slipping. I went through a whole lot of stuff in my marriage, and when my kids were really, really small, and I was letting it get to me. And I was sad. I was depressed. I didn't know how to process it. And they were like, get your ass in gear. This is not you. You are stronger than this. Quit being such a you know what and get it together. Saddle up. Let's go. And I was just like, they don't have any idea what I'm going through. And then finally I was like, fuck, yes, they do. They're 100% right. What am I doing? I am not a sissy. I'm not a weak individual who's going to allow someone to control and empower me. That's not going to happen. And I was like, no. So anyway, to that point, yes, I think that for people like us, for our personality, tough love is required to give as an offering. It's also required to receive. So I'm not going to respond to someone who says, did you ever think about doing this? No, that's going to be like, I'm going to be bored. I'm going to walk away. But if someone comes to me and says, you fucked up, this is what you did, and this is what you should have been doing. Now you take a minute and think about yourself and what you can do differently. Then I'm going to listen. Now you've got my attention. So yes, to that point, tough love. I'm a fan of tough love.
Powerful. And one of our mutual coaches, Sean Michael Crane, me and him got into it a little bit because we were talking, and I'm talking about physical injuries, and I'm talking about how I feel on a daily basis. And I'm like, bro, my fucking joints ache. I'm throwing up every morning. Right now, I'm having a problem cutting down on fat, and my macros are fucking immaculate. I'm doing the cardio. Like, what the fuck isn't working? And I'm getting frustrated with people. And I'm like, bro, I'm tired of this fucking energy from people, of just not living into it, not doing what they need to do, of complaining and pointing the finger. And
Mhm.
Sean's like, hey, I know exactly what it is for you. You need to give more love to the world. You need to give more love to people and just be fucking nicer. And I'm looking at Sean. I'm like, the fuck you talking about? I need to be nicer, Sean. That's not what people need. And it was funny because Sean told me that, and it was something I didn't want to hear. And
Yeah.
in turn, I just started being nicer, started talking a little bit differently. They were also talking about the music we talk about, because I'm over here listening to people music about shooting people up and chopping them up. And I'm like, in my head, nothing's wrong about it. And he's like, bro, it goes into your energy. It goes into how you're showing up.
Absolutely.
And if you're trying to be, positive, and you're trying to be better, it leads into that. So it was funny because I found it again that with certain clients, I need to be hard on them. And then the other clients, I need to be more lenient and understand, hey, man, what do we need to do? Map the plan out
It's
differently.
delivery.
So I
It's
love the
all
way you said that.
delivery. Yeah. And depending on the person, it's just how you deliver that message. I'm going to talk to an 80-year-old woman much differently than I'm going to talk to a 32-year-old man. It's going to be a very different conversation. But it's also a matter of getting that point clear. I might be a little harder on you, but if I'm speaking to a woman who's just been completely traumatized and she's, on the edge, I might say, okay, let's break this down and let's figure out how we can fix this and what we can do differently, or what you can do differently, as opposed to, yeah, I might say, put the booze away, get to the gym, get your ass to get ass in the gym and get your ass in gear and do this. So it's just a matter of delivery, but it is the same message in the end.
Powerful. You talked about masculine, feminine energy. One thing that you talk about on your social media is your intuition.
Yeah.
That is something that we run away from. We don't trust that gut feeling. We don't trust how we're sitting with things. And you said one thing that really resonated with me the other day. You're like, trust in your intuition. If you feel something's wrong, if you feel something's up, something is up. Uh, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I don't think people understand that power of the feeling, that they understand that, hey, something is up, but I'm not 100% there. I don't 100% know if this is true.
Yeah. Your intuition will never lie to you. And just look back on your life and look at all those times where you feel something is just wrong, but you go with what society or what people have told you is the path that you're supposed to take. That's always failed for me. So that's coming from a higher power. You can sense someone's energy when they walk into a room. And back to kids, I teach this to my kids at a very young age. I explain, you see the way you felt around that person? That's your intuition. That's God talking to you. You always trust that. It's always right. So yeah, I'll open up a little bit here, which I wasn't planning on doing, but basically the post that you saw, it was a while back. I knew for sure something was wrong with the person that I was my partner. I knew there were red flags, but everyone was telling me, he loves you so much. He's so doting over. I said, but there's something wrong. I don't know what it is. There's something wrong. And unfortunately, I didn't trust that intuition, and it led me down a very dark path. And I've had to claw and scratch my way out of it, and I still am. But to that point, and I want to speak to the younger generation too. When I say younger, I mean 20s and 30s that are making that decision to choose your partner. Choosing your partner in your life is probably essentially, if not the most important decision you will ever have to make. That is your battle mate. That is the person you are going to go through life with, and everything from people being sick, from you being sick, from people dying, from raising children, to where you live, what you do every day. That is an extremely important decision. Follow your intuition. If there's a flag, don't ignore it. If you feel something is wrong, either address it with the person, communicate on it, and then make your decisions and assess differently, or walk away. But you have to follow your intuition, even when it comes to business. If you're making a business decision and something is saying this just isn't right, something is wrong, it's wrong. Always trust it.
Again, you hit it on the money. And I went through the same thing. Like I said, I led my marriage into shit and I kind of just wallowed in that for a second. Not that I wanted to, but it just fucking hurt because it was like my actions are a direct reflection of myself and where I was at. And that was something I had to sit with, is understanding that, hey, I did this. There is ways to move forward, but it's not going to be fucking fun.
Yeah.
And the second part from that, was I had two partnerships that failed. And it was kind of funny because first I suppressed that. I didn't talk about it. Really, I've lied about it for 11 months. And then the truth came out. And then my business partnerships fell out at the same time. And I'm about to lose everything. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it was a reason. Like I needed that to happen. The partnerships didn't happen because of the underlying shit that was really there. I didn't trust it as well. So when you're talking about intuition, like I knew something was up. I knew
Mhm.
the partnerships weren't working out. And it kind of was all alignment that all that shit went in together. And that's kind of where I was at was like, hey, talking about that. So I started talking to that man and I'm like, hey, if you're trying to fix your fucking marriage, you're trying to do whatever, you're going to change what you're doing. You're not going to have female friends that you're texting to fucking validate your feelings. You're not going to act like that. You're going to be fucking business. You're going to be doing to be the best you can be. And if not, like, why are you fucking wasting your time? Because that's what a lot
Mhm.
of men like to do is like, oh, I can drink on my conditional terms. And it's like, that's not the way shit works.
Mhm.
One of the things you talked about was when you were prepping for your show and all the emotions kind of behind it. There's people, naysayers, if you will, that were kind of saying things. Oh, you're not going to do this. Your physique isn't going to be this. And two, people don't just say shit. They say it for a fucking reason. So, how important was it to you, once you got done with the show, to be able to show people and say, hey, despite all the adversity that was popping up, despite all the things people were saying, you still showed up, you still stuck to the program, and you still made sure that you were the best you can be at that current moment.
Yeah, I mean, the people, it's unbelievable. When people don't agree with what you're doing, they have no problem saying it and they have no problem trying to bring you down. It's I don't know if you've ever heard about like the crabs in a bucket theory, but
Yeah.
one crab tries to call out and all the other and do better and have a better life, and the other crabs are like, "No, no, 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 you're coming back in." So, a lot of times even family, I got to tell you, I'll never forget. I was at a huge like so I think it was like a 50th birthday party or something, and one of my aunts came to me and she saw me eating like literally like tilapia and whatever it was. I was like, I think I was like 6 weeks out, which is a crucial, crucial time.
Right.
And what are you doing? What are you doing this for? Are you getting paid? What, why are you doing this? Your whole family's in there. And I was like, I literally just sat there and I had to put like blinders on and I said, this is my goal. It's not yours. But do you know how good I felt after? Had nothing to do with anybody else. I set a target. I did everything I had to do to meet that target, and I didn't let anything get in my way. If people would just do that on a consistent basis, what it does for your self confidence and it just teaches you to know that you can accomplish anything, but you just got to make the decision and set your mind to it and do this to everybody else. Just nope, 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 not listening, not listening. Thank you. I have my plan and I'm sticking to it. And everybody can just shut their mouths. It's if you have a goal, I'm not going to be like, "Yo, I think that's stupid and what are you getting out of it?" No, if you tell me you have a goal, I'm going to say, "Okay, how can I support you? What do you need?" you know and in one of my I spoke at a networking event last summer, and one of the things I hit on was two of my very best girlfriends. I'm talking 20-year friendships. I could say to them, I want to climb this wall with my feet first. They would say, okay, let's do it. We'll be down here supporting you. We're not going to go with you, but we'll help you figure it out. And those are the people. It's who you surround yourself with is key. And if there's anybody around you that has this much negativity, either try to help them real quick. And if they're not willing to help themselves, then I'm sorry, you're taking up too much space and you're bringing me down because I have places to go.
Powerful. And that hit me two reasons. So first reason was one of my buddies. I used to live off his fucking couch in high school and really was just going through my shit. I'd go home, do my chores every day, and I'd be at this dude's house. I had no fucking money. He was a barber, and he used to just give me money to just get more clients for him or really took care of me. And he called
Yeah.
me the other day and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this life insurance. And I start fucking laughing because he's doing what they do to you, and they fucking tell you all the good things. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, what do you think? And I was like, it's not about what I think, it's about the foundation. And he's like, well, could you talk about that? And I'm like, okay, if you want to be successful at anything sales, because it's straight commission, I was like, you're going to fucking learn. And I was like, you better wake up every morning and you better make sure that you have your meals prepped. You better make sure that you're getting a workout in. You better make sure you have good fucking energy. You better make sure you're decompressing because it's going to be fucking tough. You better make sure that every single day sets up the same because it gets fucking rough, especially when you're not making money. You're going to have those negative thoughts. If you could stick to that foundation, life's going to be good. And he's like, man, this is why I called you, because everybody else was telling him not to do it, that it's not a smart investment. And then there's me, and I'm like, no, fuck that, dude. You're going to be all in, and this is how you're going to do it. People
Yes.
don't understand those things.
Yeah. To that point, I have a cousin, and he's incredible. He's got like very similar mindset that we have. Sometimes doubts himself though, and he's a barber, and he was doing this, he was doing that. He's like, well, I really want to do this. He's like, but nobody's really backing me. How can I do this? How can I make it to this level? I go, make the decision. You make the decision and you're gonna do it. And he's like, but how can I get to, you'll figure it out. First make the decision, stop doubting yourself and get there. We're gonna do this. And I'm not gonna let you fail. So it's similar.
That and in second point, it was powerful what you said on just blocking people out. Because I ran into a situation like that last year. Um, I came out with a goal, fucking right 2 days before Thanksgiving. I was already getting shredded, already working on that. But like I said, my metabolism was fucked. I was just going through it. I'm like, hey, I've been at this for months. I've been on a cut. I'm gaining weight on a cut. My macros are good. I'm looking bigger. But for whatever reason, that number's not changing. And I'm looking leaner, but the fat's not coming all the way. So 2 days before Thanksgiving, here goes me with these fucking great ideas. And I'm like, I'm going to get a 6-pack by December 31st. So I'm getting a Taylor Swift tattoo, which I still have to get that tattoo. And it was funny as fuck because I hate Taylor Swift. When I was in Kuwait, the only thing they played on the radio was like Taylor Swift. And it just kept happening. Like you have a 12-hour driving and you just hear that "Look What You Made Me Do" song. So
Oh
I
gosh.
put that out in the world.
Painful.
And one of my wife's friends that she was in the Navy with, he messaged her and he was like, hey, so have you started looking at tattoos of Taylor Swift tattoos? And I took offense to it. I was like, nah, fuck that. Why would he say that? My wife's like, it's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, people just don't say shit. And I kind of already felt a way about the guy because I noticed with him, I had to tone myself down because I'm real high energy and I'm just off the fucking walls all the time. And this guy's just hesitating and he's like, well, I really don't know. And that was something with him. I was like, I don't like this fucking guy because his energy, dude. Like you're driving me fucking nuts, dude. And it was funny because I was so consumed with what he said. And me and my wife fought about it. We fought tooth and nail. And she's like, oh, this is one of my best friends. I'm like, no, fuck that. I don't like that fucking guy. And I was just going off about it. And I was thinking about it in the gym and I was getting so heated. And it led me into not even accomplishing that goal, getting the 6-pack because I was just listening to people. And 10 days before that was over, I was supposed to just do a 3-day, 86-hour fast because Sean posted it. Oh, I'm doing an 86-hour fast. Then I was like, nah, fuck that, Sean. That's not 4 days. So I was like, I'll do 4 days. And then I got pissed off. I was like, I'll do 7. So I ended up doing a 10-day fast because I heard so many people being like, I can't fucking do this. And it was funny because, again, we're talking about the energy and just blocking people out. I didn't block them out. Instead, I used that energy in the wrong way and fed it into the ego. And I was just like, I'm tired of all these fucking people. So I did a 10-day fast. And then that led me wanting to do a 21-day. And when I looked at it, I was like, hey, this is just my ego talking. It's not even me wanting to be the best I can be. It's just proving people wrong. And that's where I was wrong. Is I was going to do a 21-day. And then I thought about it. And I'm like, well, my goal is to get in the best shape of my life. I already have all these injuries. And I do a 10-day fast. And then this January was just fucking miserable because I came off that fast thinking that, oh, I'm just going to up my fucking carbs again. And all of a sudden, go to 100 grams of carbs. And then I'm going to be fucking being able to lift heavy. And it's like, that's not how it worked at all. Really, I didn't start feeling good until February when I went up to like 200 carbs a day. Then all of a sudden it started to change for me. But it was funny because that ego got me going. But I realized that I needed to change the way that I was saying certain things because I was just running away from myself, of, hey, I'm trying to prove this dude wrong, trying to prove whatever. Also was ruining my marriage because I'm over here like, this dude's a bitch and just calling people bitches and just acting up because, again, I was upset and being like, hey, people don't just say shit. They say it for a fucking reason. In my case, it was identifying that, but I let my ego get the best of me within that moment. So I love the way you said
that ego, man.
Hell yeah, sister. Well, you've been an amazing guest, and I'll wrap it up with this one last question here that I ask everybody on the show. What would you say to the previous version of ourselves? We don't know where to start. We just want to align ourselves with our definition of success.
Where would I start? What would I do?
Mhm.
Um, I would honestly start with self improvement. I would make a list of everything I love about myself and everything I don't love about myself, put it to the side, and then I would create the avatar of who the person is that I would want to be and create take small steps to be that person. It's live as if. So if you want to be in the best shape of your life, it's very simple. Just instead of saying I'm fat, you're not fat. I'm on my path to being in the best shape of my life. That's what you're doing. So as long as you identify who you are, you don't let you don't let society do that for you. But what you talk to yourself about and what you speak to yourself, your self-talk has a huge impact on who you are and what you bring to the world.
Huge. And that's what I'm always talking about, is I took it from Wes Watson when he's talking about creating that man you admire. I started doing that as well, and that's one of the things I'm preaching on the daily is like, hey, create that person you admire and start living into it every day. Because
Yes.
a lot of us didn't have that, or if we did, we didn't have it at that full capacity that we admire. So we
Mhm.
didn't live in that. And that's powerful. So I really appreciate you. I know definitely we'll do a round two in the future. So thank you again. Where can people find you if they want to keep up with you?
Yeah, just Instagram, Rosemary Bonner. Hit me up. I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime.
Absolutely. We'll have it in the show notes so anybody can go to you. Thank you again. It's a tremendous honor. You're an amazing guest.
Thank you.